All right, we've got Scott Onstott with us tonight. He was the creator of this brilliant movie. It's like almost 4 hours long. Secrets in Plain Sight from almost 10 years ago now. And he's also got a sacred geometry course going, and we're talking to him. He's on Vancouver Island, and we're in Alberta. So it's a Canadian one tonight. Thanks for joining us, Scott. How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
You know who's stoked? I gotta give a shout out to T-Bone. T-Bone Shuffle in the chats, Grimerica.ca/chats. He is over the moon, looking forward to this. He said since he started listening to Grimerica, he's been hoping that we would have Scott on.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, it's great. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, like we were saying before we started recording, most of our listeners are familiar with sacred geometry, and we've talked to guys like Randall Carlson about it, and it's a pretty mind-blowing topic on its own. And we're also talking about how your Secrets in Plain Sight movie was kind of, it's become part of the culture now with this symbolism across the world and the sacred geometry and architecture, and it's a real mind-blowing movie, and the feedback has just been astronomically good, And I think what people really liked about it is you weren't having to get into the conspiracy of it or the who and the why. You just put out all the information in a nice, simple, concise manner for everybody to understand how mind-blowing all these patterns are. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I needed to draw my own conclusion about what it all meant. I left it open for the viewers of the movie to come to their own conclusions about the causality of these patterns. And I think that was a good approach because it includes everybody's different worldviews in that.
Exactly.
And so you have fans that are scientists to religious fundamentalists and everywhere in between.
Did you, when you were making it, did you kind of, because I mean, this thing's a hit. I mean, I was looking today and I was like, it's got over 6 million views just on the one channel. And I mean, it's been copied and replayed on a bunch of other channels, and they've got a few 100,000 views on all of them. Yeah. So, I mean,
a few years ago, like in 2017, I tallied it up and it was about 10 million at that point. So it's more than that now. But what's amazing is that it's almost 4 hours long, and there's not that many videos that people like watch many times that are that long. A lot of the big fans of the show have seen it 10 times or more.
Yeah.
So how did it all start?
Well, it started just reading a lot of books, and what the catalyst for it all was just a conversation I had with this intuitive woman, Marcia Schaefer, back in 2009, and she got in contact with my higher self, and she was telling me things about me that I thought were very accurate, and she said, "You're going to be making a movie." And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never made a movie. I make instructional videos, but not movies. And I said, well, what's it going to be about? And she said, well, that's for you to figure out. But it's really important that you do it. And so I took that advice to heart, and I spent about 2 weeks coming up with the whole script. It kind of poured out of me, like all at once. It was like a download in a way.
Wow.
And then it took me the whole year to put it all together, get all the images, and they're all like Creative Commons licenses or public domain images. And I didn't spend any money on it at all. It was just all my time, And I did spend a whole year putting that film together. So it was a labor of love, and millions of people have seen it around the world, and a number of people have said it's really changed their life and their worldview for the better, and it's opened them up to new possibilities. And so I feel really grateful that I've been able to positively influence a lot of people's lives. And it's brought me a lot of friendship and connection with interesting people all around the world. So it was a great thing to do. It wasn't a big money maker, but that's not why I did it.
Yeah, well, it might end up working out long term for you. I mean, we talked about it being part of the culture now. We started this podcast almost 6 years ago, and your movie was out years and years before that, and it's just now it's like a staple of the type of thing you see a whole bunch of people doing it, whether it's Ancient Aliens or some of the other people that are connecting these dots between different cultures over the years. So it really is important work. I mean, maybe for context for people, we should talk about some of maybe your favorite aspects of that, or some favorite connections that you made, or some real. And then I got a couple questions about that, and then we can get more into some of your more current stuff in your course on sacred geometry that you also have.
Sure, yeah. Well, one of the things that really stood out for me when I was analyzing cities and architecture around the world was geometry, and how some of the most interesting and powerful complexes in major cities in the world are based on simple geometries that are very compelling, and some people call this whole area of study sacred geometry, because the geometry is so fundamental, and when you start to understand its significance, a natural feeling of sacredness arises out of these patterns. And so for me, the long-lasting take-home message of Secrets in Plain Sight was sacred geometry is really important. And so that's where I've been focusing my efforts more recently, in creating sacred geometry courses and doing workshops where I guide up to 33 participants in a weekend workshop where we go deeply into sacred geometry, and we draw a bunch of things on one day, and on another day we make a group project together that's really very moving and a beautiful experience.
Oh, that's fantastic. Of course, 33 participants. Well, we should talk about that for sure. I mean, that's, again, your movie was probably one of the ones that brought 33 to light to a lot of people as well. I mean, you reference it over and over in there, and the amount of, like, I can't believe all the stuff you pulled out, whether it's part of the U.S. flag or whether it's part of architecture of a building. Like, 33 is always,
and now it's part of pop culture, which is the problem. So now it's going to get greasy. Yeah.
Because now you hear it in the media, and you're always wondering, you know, it's a sign that something is afoot when you hear, like.
Well, I just read it today. I was reading an article about the scandal with U.S. universities and how parents have been bribing their way to have their children go to the universities. And in the biggest lawsuit ever against this kind of thing, there were 33 people. And I just thought, why does it have to be 33? You know,
exactly. Because they're saying something that, like, for me, it's a bell that rings for somebody to know that that's part of some sort of agenda. That's the way I kind of look at it.
I think it's just like
it's even deeper than the agenda. The agendas certainly are operative and do happen, but it's part of the universe. You know, we have 33 bones in the spinal column, and there's 33 octaves from the Earth's resonant frequency to middle C. And there's just a lot of examples of these things, like Mach 33 is escape velocity. You have to go Mach 33 to leave the Earth. So that's 33 times the speed of sound.
And there's no way we knew that. Well, there's no way that. I was going to say, like, how could they have done that? But there's no way. How do you make it so that escaping the Earth's velocity is the same as...
Nobody makes it. That's what he's saying. Like, there's
that's
so many natural...
and I got to say, it was during your documentary that it clicked for me. And I don't even know that it clicked because I'm just a fucking idiot. But I think it clicked. And it's when you were lining up, what is it, the latitude of the Great Pyramid and the speed of light?
Yeah. That's a really amazing one. And since I made that, in 2009 or 10, when I did that research, the data has gotten more accurate, that you can get in Google Earth, for example, on the position.
Right.
It's right on the frickin' money right there on the top of the pyramid. Before, I think in the video, I said it was like within 50 meters or something like that, but it's right on. Speed of light.
The speed of light in meters?
Yeah, what's interesting is the metric system is implicated in this. And I've found parallels with the metric system in the Great Pyramid. And obviously, we know the metric system wasn't invented until, let's say, 1800. So how is it that it could be encoded in a structure that's clearly thousands of years old? And I think that, the answer is the metric system is based on the geometry of the Earth. And we know that's true. In 1800, they based it on the meridian circumference of the Earth. And they divided that into 40,000 parts, and they called those kilometers.
Oh, wow.
And then in ancient times, they must have done something similar. They must have measured the Earth very accurately.
Yeah, but
and devised a measurement system based on it.
but then they not only that, they got to pick the same start point to line up to that latitude.
Well, the equator.
Or it's the equator, yeah, I guess so. Everyone would pick that.
That's a natural feature.
So yeah, at least, and you have to be able to distinguish where that is.
Yeah, you have to figure that out based on detailed knowledge of the whole Earth, which goes against our understanding of what ancient Egypt was all about and what they knew.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
when I seen,
yeah,
when I seen those two numbers on the screen, that was like when it hammered home, and I was like, it's all simulation, man. I was like, that's not the Illuminati. That's not anyone trying to. That's just the machine just is coming up with some numbers, and it's like, yeah, no one's gonna notice this. And then Scott Onstott comes along and breaks it.
Well, I wasn't the one to discover that, and actually, I'm not sure who did. It's in my film. I do mention the person, but a lot of my film is just researching what knowledge is out there and then presenting that to you.
Yeah,
and giving credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
So some people think, oh, I'm the one who discovered a lot of these things, and sometimes it's true. I do have unique discoveries, but many times I'm just reporting on what's already been figured out by other people in the past.
Yeah.
So how do you think what do you think about it? Do you think it's like, how does that 33 come up all the time? Like, I don't know. How else could it be if it's not, it's either like,
because it's
to be a
fun
computer.
Well, there's a couple of things. I've seen so many examples of these numbers and patterns appearing where they really shouldn't, seemingly with our current understanding, appear. But I think it exposes the mathematical nature of the universe is entirely mathematical. And that gets into what your comment about a simulation being a possibility. But also, I've thought deeply about what mathematics is. It's a language, right? In fact, it's the universal language because it transcends culture. There's only one math. There's not a Chinese math and a totally separate American math. It's all one math. Even if you were on another planet, presumably you would come up with the same mathematical ideas. But of course, you would express them with different symbols. But that doesn't matter. Languages have different letters. And different words, but we all get to the same meaning behind it. But basically, the universe is entirely mathematical. But mathematics is always, you have to remember, it's just a language. And languages are completely empty without consciousness. Language, when you find a language, it's always an artifact of consciousness, right? Like, you don't just put Spanish in a bucket.
Yeah.
And stir it up. There's no understanding there without consciousness to parse the language. So what that hints at is that the universe is actually
intelligently
built on
designed
an operating system of mathematics, but it's running in the mind of consciousness, behind everything. You can't get behind that. And in fact, one of the founders of quantum physics, Max Planck, said you can't get behind consciousness. Everything we know presupposes consciousness. And so these figures in quantum physics have kind of known this for about 100 years now. But our culture hasn't really caught up to this understanding. We still think that we're just that consciousness isn't what's underlying it all. We still think that it's really just based on matter, on these things
that our brain generates it.
Yeah, but the things don't really exist. When we look deeply into the things, we see that they're really just mathematical representations, right? When we look deeply into a proton or a quark or something, the only qualities it has are mathematical.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any other qualities. It doesn't have any other characteristics than numbers. So anyway, that's what my research boils down to, is the primacy of number representing the universe in all of its myriad forms, and how geometry is number in space.
Well,
and so it's very fundamental.
that's kind of what I was thinking, is that that number 33 coming up all the time and things like that kind of fit in with the, the patterning you see in sacred geometry. It's like the pattern of, it's the numerical representation of the patterns that you're seeing in the universe's geometry. It would make sense that the underlying, the data would be numbers, I guess.
Yeah, and like the Scottish Rite Freemasonry has 33 degrees, as I'm sure you are aware.
Yeah.
But that just tells me that the people who formulated that whole system understood something deeply about the universe and the importance of this pattern of 33 representing the whole 9 yards. It represents the full spectrum,
Yeah.
So
I think the one aspect that you guys talked about, where the pyramid latitude with the speed of light or whatever, is kind of a natural phenomena in a way, maybe, but there's a lot of things you put together where it's cultures that you wouldn't think are tied together, or organizations that you wouldn't think are tied together, that are making things line up over continents a long time ago, whether it's from England to France, or whether it's farther across the globe. So there is some intentional building stuff in these patterns, which is more, it's almost more mind-blowing to me that was going on back then.
Well, like, for example, the Great Pyramid is located in a very singularly important place in the world. And if you look at the longest distance on land that you can draw, and so I was playing around in Google Earth and drawing a line and seeing the longest continuous line I can draw.
Straight line?
And it turns out it has to go through the Sinai, basically. It has to go through that narrow land bridge there, because it connects Western Africa with East Asia. And that's for sure the longest route. And if you play around with the endpoints, get it as long as possible. And then Giza happens to be at the golden ratio on that line. So that to me says that whoever put that there understood the Earth as a whole, and they saw this, well, what would be the most interesting place to put this monument? And so they had this knowledge that we've only reattained, or recently with GPS satellites. And it's become publicly available through Google Earth about 10 years ago or something. So it's really not been out that long, but now we're just catching up with this ancient knowledge that was there far before the civilization of ancient Egypt as we know it. I think what it points to, and it's what other researchers have found, is that the story of Atlantis may have a real seed of truth to it, that our human civilization may have been very advanced in the distant past, and then there was a cataclysm that wiped that civilization out, and most everything was lost. And the Great Pyramid happens to be one of the artifacts from that prior age.
Well, some people think it was designed for that very purpose. I mean, other people think it's a machine and things like that, but I mean, part of me thinks that those sarcophaguses were filled with seeds and shit, and the Egyptians just found them.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what the literal truth of it is in terms of the purpose of the Great Pyramid. I think it's multi-dimensional purpose. It could have been a machine. It certainly has those hallmarks. Could have been a vehicle for conscious ascension.
That's what I think.
Could have been just like a time capsule encoding all this mathematical knowledge.
Yeah.
I think that once you do start to understand how everything works on a deeper level, it's just a natural impulse to try to monumentalize that in some way, try to encode that in some way. And whether or not you're concerned with catastrophe potentially befalling civilization, it's just a natural impulse to encode that in your designs. When you understand the importance of the golden ratio, then you want to use it in your designs. It's just inescapable, you know?
Yeah. And there's other things, not to stay on the pyramids for too long, but there's other things that you talk about, I think, that match the circumference of the globe, maybe, or there's other size factors with the pyramids as well, I think, isn't there?
Yeah, the pyramid itself is like a scale model of the Earth in 1 to 43,200 scale.
Right.
And so that's one of the things it has going for it.
Is that the whole plateau?
No, it's just the pyramid itself, the base perimeter.
Oh, I see. Okay.
If you measure that, that would be equivalent to the circumference of the Earth if you scale it up by that factor.
And that factor is sacred in its own, that 432.
Yeah, and then the height of the pyramid would also be the distance from the center of the Earth to the North Pole. So it's amazing. And this knowledge was just so comprehensively encoded in this monument. I don't think that if you were asked to encode a bunch of things in an object, you would even be able to. It shows an intelligence level that's beyond what we typically have today.
Yeah, I don't think we could pull it off today. I don't even think we could just build the pyramid, let alone line it up with a bunch of stuff. I mean, I work construction, so I mean, I see firsthand and I'm just doing commercial. It's not super high end, but there's no way we're pulling off a pyramid.
But you have to. Normally, when you build construction, you might get the whole building down to within an inch, or maybe a half an inch, maybe if you're lucky. But you're not going to get super accurate unless you need to, right? And accuracy costs money. So why would you build a pyramid so accurately? It would be insane to do that, especially with the story that, they shaped the blocks with copper balls. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and that makes me think of the contemporary architecture that we have now. I mean, it seems like the way cities are planned and developed, there's no, sacred thought at all. Like,
except Washington?
It seems that I'd consider that more older. I'm talking about, like, let's say the way Calgary or Dallas is sprawling out with these little communities that are made. Like, it just feels like
without a plan.
Yeah.
And it's a nightmare.
Yeah,
But like cities like Paris and DC and were
London,
very carefully planned or redeveloped at certain points, and so they do encode all this amazing stuff. And like the city of Astana in Kazakhstan is a new city, sort of built out of, well, there was something there before, but much of the city was built from nothing, and so there's a lot of interesting geometry and things there. And there aren't that many opportunities for people to build whole cities from nothing. There are a few examples: Brasilia, Canberra. These cities were built out of nothing, and so they encode all these incredible things.
Well, when were those built, though? When would they be encoding these? Like, is it like the last couple decades, or are you talking 100 to 200 years?
Well, I think it was in the 1950s that Brasilia was made.
Yeah.
I don't know about Canberra. I think it was recently as well.
Yeah.
Paris, of course, was redone, and those straight boulevards were cut through medieval fabric of the city.
Yeah.
And the kind of Baroque thing that happened then. But we can't do that now. It would never happen. Can you imagine? Like, sorry, you got to get, all your houses are condemned and we're just going to put a road here.
Yeah, exactly. We want to make it sacred.
They're doing that like on the U.S. border, I think, with Texas and Mexico. They're saying because of Trump's wall, they're just eminent domaining a bunch of farms and stuff and just saying, this is ours now, sorry. And of course it doesn't make people happy because they lose their property.
Yeah.
I think, what do you get? You get market value. We had a huge thing in Calgary here just a few years ago when they built the new Glenmore Trail extension there. There's a bunch of people that were holding out. They're like, no, we ain't moving. it lasted for a few years, and finally the government was just like, no, sorry, you're in the way of progress. Now you know how the Indians felt.
I saw a picture in China where there's this one guy who held out and wouldn't sell his house, and they built the freeway around it, and his house is in the middle of the freeway.
See, that's not bad. That's not. I want to be that holdout.
Yeah.
Now I'll take the buyout when they're still offering the money, and I'll move away, as far away from that fucking city as I can.
But why do they design it with that much intention behind it? Is it because it holds a power or a magic to it? I mean, it's symbolism. It's sacred for their own purposes in a way. Like I can't help thinking it would be just for like architectural purposes.
Yeah, these designs do have a power in the sense that they align with the geometry of the universe, and so they're very resonant with as above, so below. And so when you design your structures and individual pieces of architecture, and let alone whole cities resonating with these principles, then you're setting yourself up to have this kind of powerful as above, so below thing happen. And then I don't know, like today we tend to measure power in like volts or dollars, but power can also just be in sense of harmony with the universe.
Yeah.
We don't really have a number for that. But I think that there's a benefit to be reaped when you work with nature rather than against it. And that might not be quantifiable as such, but it's just a beautiful thing. Maybe we just appreciate it on an aesthetic level.
Yeah, or on an intuitive level.
You know,
maybe intuitive level. Like maybe that's why Paris has so much power with the culture and love and all that. I mean, you go into Paris and you can feel that sacredness, or I mean, maybe even Washington D.C. or London has like, that's why you
must be able to feel the power in Washington. I'm sure there's no planes flying over this motherfucker or nothing like that.
Well, Pennsylvania Avenue, this avenue of power that connects the U.S. Capitol with the White House, it's aligned to the heliacal rising of Sirius, which is what the ancient Egyptians built their calendar on. And so too is the Champs-Élysées in Paris. It's aligned to the same astronomical phenomenon. And that's no accident. These are avenues of power. It's the historical axis of Paris. It's this avenue of power in the United States. And they're aligned with the stars and with Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. So that alone just makes these cities like top notch,
Yeah.
And that's the exact thing. You see that with the caves in Ireland, what is it? I forget what they're called now, the Grange or whatever. Newgrange. And all these, the pyramid.
Yeah, that's amazing. Newgrange.
Yeah, it's like, we did a show on that. It's like the ancients knew that. It looks like, Parisians were doing it when they're founding Paris, whenever that was. And George Washington and his buddies are doing it when they're making stuff in Washington. So, I mean, Washington, all those guys were Masons. I don't know about the people that made Paris. Maybe, I don't know if you know a little bit about that.
I think they were. Yeah, I think they were Freemasons also. I believe that is the case. And so they did this because they had this organization that had the will to encode that. But I think at the end of the day, they made some pretty amazing things.
Yep.
And you can say it's an evil conspiracy, but that's just your own take on it. Necessarily, I don't know if you're saying that, but
not really. No,
I know some pretty amazing Masons.
Not necessarily evil. Just that there's some kind of reason and intention behind it. It doesn't have to be evil or not. It could just be, like I think you said.
But the thing that I question is why we don't do that more.
Yeah.
Why do we build like Calgary and Edmonton and places that just sprawl out, Los Angeles, without any container, and we don't apply geometry to it. We don't make it special in any way. We just let it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we got
to build stuff.
Well, we got just Nenshi, and look at our city council. It's just a bunch of dweebs, and I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be a dick, but I mean, they don't have any vision. They're just worried about making money so that they can get elected again, so that they can give their buddies all the good jobs. And maybe once in a while you get a good one in there and they build a couple of parks or some shit. But none of them are thinking big picture like that. Like, hey, none of them, that's not even on their fucking radar. Unless they're a Mason. Maybe it is. But then, you know, Masons are getting a bad rap.
Masons aren't all on the same page with that. Like at one point, I had a friend who was a 33rd degree Freemason, you know, and he got me into this meeting where they were going to design a new lodge, and he wanted me to be the architect of it because he's seen my films and loves it. And I'm like, okay, I'm open to that, you know. And so I met, you know, video conference with the stakeholders, and they're not interested in it really at all. They're just interested in the economics of it, in the cheapest lodge they can build. And they already have a design that they've used before. So why would they want to change that? And so it was like, okay, well, it's not like everybody who's a Freemason is interested in these patterns at all. I think it's more of a business organization, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just that certain individuals who are in that organization may take an interest in the mysteries, just like you guys are interested in the mysteries.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that because you're a Freemason that you're going to be interested in the mysteries. That's not true at all. It's just certain individuals, for whatever reason, seek that out and want to learn and educate themselves. And I found that with my film Secrets in Plain Sight, that if I try to show someone it, if I try to like sit them down and watch this, chances are they're not going to want to see it. But if they come to it on their own accord, they may become huge fans of it and see it 10 times and just totally love it and get something out of it every time they watch it. So it's really just, you have to come to the knowledge yourself. You have to want to know about the mysteries. And that means that you probably have already figured out how to survive in this world. Because if you haven't figured out that part, then that's what you're going to be consumed with.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a luxury kind of intellectual product, is like wondering about the mysteries of life. It's only that we can do that when we are fortunate to grow up in a culture where we're not worried about surviving as much, you know?
Yeah.
And we still can't build a pyramid. So what does that tell you about what kind of lifestyles they were living at that time, right? Obviously, they weren't hunting and gathering.
They must have had it down, you know. They must have had it wired, and they're like, yeah, you know, we can survive, but we want our lives to mean something. Life should be about meaning and significance and harmony with the universe, rather than the accumulation of material goods or whatever it is that is the underlying meme of our age. You know, it's like at the end of your life, you probably are going to look back on the meaningful aspects of your life, the relationships that you've had. And if you want to make something that lasts for the future, then hopefully it's not just a building that's going to be torn down in 15 years anyway.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what happens.
Oh, it's happening now with the Saddle Dome. It's massive concrete dome is 30, 40 years old and it's getting torn down. I mean, it's hard to believe that this is happening nowadays in this modern time, that we can't even build something that's going to last more than a few decades. Like, it's unbelievable.
Absolutely. And like in Los Angeles, where they have a little bit more history, maybe because there's been people there a little bit longer, they don't respect it. They just pave over older buildings and make a parking lot because of economics.
Yeah.
There's no reason to keep an old theater around, really, unless they can spin it in some economic way.
Yeah.
We don't, as a species, we don't tend to make the big monumental gestures very often.
Yeah.
And even if we have all the money in the world, we end up not doing that for some reason. Like, if we could build the Great Pyramid, why hasn't someone done that? Why hasn't some billionaire done it? You know?
Yeah.
We should do a Kickstarter. We'll team up. We'll do a Kickstarter. We'll build a pyramid.
There's a 30 by 30 one a couple hours down the road that people
No. We're building a fucking Giza replica.
Yeah. Well, Luxor, Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Except the chambers won't be gender specific.
Yeah. Well, we'll make it without an economic purpose.
Yeah. There you
It's
go.
just made of stone.
What'd you do if we just start shooting lasers out of the air vents, vibrating, and that'd be something. So I wonder if is Sirius just the brightest star in the sky, or do you think because I've heard a lot of people say the whole Giza Plateau is laid out to Orion, or there's a bunch of these different things to the Pleiadians.
Theories.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you come across any aliens or home planets?
Puts their spin on it. But there's also a lot of good information that's come out, and it's difficult sometimes to separate the factual information from the wild flights of fancy. You just have to use your own power of discernment to figure that out, I guess.
Yeah. So I did have one overarching question with the Secrets in Plain Sight. Isis, the goddess, came up a lot. Like, there was a lot of symbolism around the world and a lot of ties into Isis, whether it was about North American architecture or European architecture. And I thought, is there a reason why ISIS, the terrorist group, became ISIS? I mean, I feel like they've co-opted the sacred goddess name by this evil acronym. Like, you can't really even talk about ISIS. And you could... The goddess name has almost been washed clean of our society. I mean, I was in this little Egyptian spa in Calgary, and there's a room, like the rooms are named after each ancient Egypt gods and stuff, and Isis had to be removed off the thing and had to rename the room. I mean, and I remember when Isis wouldn't stick for a while as the name. What did they? There was a couple of names that they were calling
it Isil.
Yeah. ISIL, ISIS, but then finally, with enough repetition, ISIS stuck, and now it's become co-opted. I mean, and I can't help but think there's a bit of a spiritual war going on, and that maybe ISIS is taken out of the
I think that's really a tragedy that name was, that acronym was chosen for that organization, because it's really polluted the whole spirit of it now. It's like you can't talk about ISIS, as you said, and people will have a bell ringing in the back of their head, like, are you talking about terrorism?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about this beautiful goddess of nature.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with terrorism, is the opposite of that, actually.
Let's take it
back. But that's a way that they took that away from people that believed in that, in a way. Like, it's and I don't mean they as in some, amorphous group of elites, but I mean definitely the media, and definitely some people chose that.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just an accident because the name is catchy, and it's a good marketing term.
Yeah, I guess it could be. Yeah,
because everybody's heard that word.
Yeah.
But no one's heard Isil. Like, what is that?
Yeah,
no, it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, what's next? Are we going to call the next terror organization Ra, or
we might
Odin?
Yeah. I mean, we should probably avoid, reusing the same
sacred name for sure. Yeah,
something completely different. It's like, names should have a power that we respect.
Yeah,
and overwrite them with something completely different, and especially when it's like the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I was surprised at how much stuff was referencing ISIS in your show.
I wonder, I was watching a video the other day, Sacred Geometry International posted about like the pattern if you draw a line between Mercury and Venus and their orbits around the sun, or Mercury and the Earth. I can't remember which it was, but it was a pretty incredible little pattern it drew there. I mean, that sacred geometry is everywhere.
There's a beautiful one I can think of with Venus and the Earth, and it forms a kind of 5-petaled flower if you just follow the pattern out over a number of years. Super, super beautiful.
Yeah. I was reading some of your blogs too, and you did a trip around the UK at some point. I'm not sure when that was, but I mean, it was really resonating with me. I did a drive around the UK as well, just driving randomly around looking for castles and like no real plan, and it really made me think. I wish I had more reverence for for the sacredness and the scenery back then. I remember a valley, driving through a valley with castles like on close to Yorkshire, like south of Yorkshire and all that. But that must have been a pretty interesting trip for you after you'd done all this research.
Yeah, it was really fulfilling to go to these places that I'd never been to in my life, but I had covered in my show and my video.
Yeah.
Like Stonehenge, for example, and Glastonbury Tor, and Rosslyn Chapel, and Newgrange in Ireland. So I got to, go to these places and meet people who I connected with who were fans of my Secrets in Plain Sight. Oftentimes, those were the fans were the people that would show me around the place.
That's awesome.
Or interview me when I was there, which was really cool. And that really made it more enriching, like I've always wanted to see these things, and then to have people who are like ready to show me is a bonus,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm super lucky.
Are you going to do like a sequel? Are you done?
Film. I did make one. You can watch that still on Gaia.com. They have both volumes 1 and 2 there. But I used to sell it on my website, but I closed my store down. So it's not available on secretsinplainsight.com anymore. But I did make a sequel that was pretty cool. It went into other cities that it didn't cover in volume 1, including Babylon and Los Angeles.
City Angels.
Yeah.
I think those cities are technically supposed to be Mexican. What was your I'm just watching, I got this video playing. It is Venus and Earth create art while they are turning around the sun.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful pattern.
How many years does that take?
I think it's 8 years.
Interesting. Would have been more interesting if it was 33.
Yeah. Not everything's 33, but
yeah.
But it's interesting when you see that so it's not just stuff on Earth. So you wonder if these different Fibonacci sequences and stuff like that. Well, is that because of some weird force on Earth that we don't know, whether it was just gravity affecting it or just the way, everything on Earth could have evolved from some single organism a long time ago. So we could have all this sort of pattern built into us. But then you start seeing it like the way water moves out of stuff, and you start seeing
cymatics, like sand on
see this beautiful
vibration.
Yeah, you see this beautiful flower made by drawing a line between the Earth and Venus and taking a snapshot every day, and it makes this insane picture. And you play, like Graham mentioned, you play the sound through the sand, and you get these crazy designs. It's like it's something's up.
I think when you find those, you're uncovering the geometrical structure of our universe. And you're noticing, how could it be that something so beautiful is underlying what should be randomness?
Yeah.
Right? Like Venus and Earth, why do they have such a beautiful relationship to one another? And why does the moon and the Earth also have another beautiful relationship that's captured in the golden ratio and in squaring the circle? These activities that you can do with a compass and a straight edge perfectly describe the relationship with our planet and the moon. And it's like that seems so far-fetched that such a simple geometry would encode such a large-scale phenomenon, which we are told to believe is totally random. But it can't be random. It's too amazing that it just happens to fit this pattern so well.
Yeah.
So do you ever think intelligent design?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that concept a lot, but
it's hard not to, right? It's hard not to go down that road. Sometimes you start seeing this shit and you're like, Jesus.
Yeah, but I think that's for me that's not a good solution, because it just leads into belief in an other, that God did it. I think that it's evidence of consciousness of some form. Now, whose consciousness that is open to debate. So it can be your God or my God or somebody else's God, if you like. Or it could just be the same consciousness that we all enjoy behind it all.
You mean like the comet one that Alex Jones was talking about?
I don't know about that.
Oh, he's like, consciousness is like a comet and the tail is evil.
I don't agree with that.
No. Yeah,
It's pretty hard to agree with.
Yeah.
But he says it so convincingly.
Yeah, I didn't get that part either.
Well, his whole concept was that God was the comet and God didn't know who God was because he couldn't remember. So he just like put himself in the survival of the fittest universe and made all us somehow. And we're all, I mean, it does seem like we seem to be hive creatures of some sort, but maybe not.
Well, we're all connected, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you eat enough mushrooms and it's hard not to realize that. I mean, I haven't got there with meditation yet, have you? Is that where you get with
Sometimes,
meditation too?
yeah,
Because
sometimes.
that's where you get when you eat a mit full of mushrooms, and I'm sure there's a bunch of ancients that were doing that. You know, it seems like, are you twitching over there?
Yeah.
Twitchy? Jesus.
Yeah, that could have been a route to this knowledge. In fact, is through entheogens, is getting this information, and they certainly could have done that in the distant past. Although I question whether they could have gotten accurate data back from such an experience. That's not usually the character of an experience like that. It's not measuring things or
No,
getting data like that.
Yeah.
it's more
No,
like
you-
abstract concepts and stuff like that. Realizing
Like viscerally understanding the connection that you have with all things.
yeah, that's right. And I've had a lot of times too where I'll just make like something that you would think is a simple little realization, but you know, it wasn't that simple for you. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard not to. I mean, there's definitely something going on there with it's all just a bunch of fractals, and I don't know, like I catch myself going down. Of course, my intelligent design tends to bring me to a simulation more often than not.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of brilliant thinkers today are leaning that way of saying, oh, it's all a simulation. But I feel that argument collapses under its own weight ultimately, because if this were a simulation running in a computer in the real world, what's to say that computer couldn't be a simulation running on another computer in an even more real world? And then it goes on forever in a kind of infinite recursion. And so the argument should collapse under its own violation of Occam's razor to the highest degree.
That's interesting because sometimes I wonder if it's like because you look at the cell structure compared to how the universe looks or how a galaxy looks or how a solar system looks, and there's all these crazy correlations, and I wonder if it's like if all the little people are probably hating that I'm saying this again on the show, but if all the little cells and microbes and all the shit that's running around inside me, is it okay that it's just a little microbe and it doesn't think anything and it's just floating around and doing its thing, or does it need to think it's getting up and going to work in the morning and, does it have its own simulation running that makes it all seem a little more worthwhile, and we're just inside some bigger organism? And
Yeah, it's a good question. Like it's basically looking from the outside down on that, or from inhabiting that structure and looking out from the inside. And so there are different experiences that we have. Like I've made a graphic that compares the road networks outside Paris with the human neurons, and they look the same.
Wow.
And so you wonder, okay, well, the cars driving around the road networks obviously don't feel like they're part of a larger consciousness, right? Because they're organized at the level of the individual in the truck driving on the road. But the neurons inside your brain, probably, if you ask a neuron, what do you think? Are you part of this larger brain that's like conscious human thought? The neuron would say, no way, I'm just a neuron going on along my business here, going from this axon to the dendrite. Leave me alone. But when we inhabit that structure from inside, we say, yeah, I feel conscious. I feel like I'm my own person. I have my own will. I can make my own decisions. And you have this feeling of wholeness and there. And I just wonder if a region or a city doesn't have its own level of emergent consciousness that actually exists at some level.
Yeah.
You know, that's why you get shitty neighborhoods and stuff.
Different cities and their characters are so different from one another. You know, it's like different people. When you meet a different person, it can be such a different feeling than another person.
Yeah.
It's similar to that, isn't it? When you go to Paris or DC, they're very different places.
Yeah.
I've never been out of it. I haven't been far.
You go to Calgary, you go to
Edmonton
Toronto.
sucks.
They seem like different places, really, and different characters, different feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
It's similar to how we react when we meet other people, right? So I speculate about that.
So what do you about now? Have you looked into any of the sort of anything sort of metaphysical behind? Like, are you into any of that sort of stuff, like intention and manifestation? Because it does seem to be a lot of the stuff that we're into points to the fact that you can actually affect this motherfucker. You know, do you have a place for that in your paradigm, or? Sure,
absolutely. Intention is very important in how you come across. I think that we are multidimensional beings, and we're just seeing a very narrow slice of reality through our eyes and through our regular consciousness. Like I'm becoming a better C# programmer. Okay, and so the little Scott who's learning it and thinks he knows it, spends hours learning how to do this thing. But then when I sit down and actually code something, it comes out of some place I don't even understand because I'm not even thinking about it. It just happens. I just code it. I'm like, it works. I can't even believe it. The little Scott who sees that happening doesn't understand where it's coming from because it's coming from a deeper layer of my unconscious, if you like. It's just like when you learn to drive a car. There's a time when you really suck at it when you're a teenager and you're trying to learn and it's difficult and you struggle and finally you get it. But then after that, you never have to go through that struggle because it's part of your
subconscious,
subconscious or right brain.
Yeah.
We don't really have good words to describe it, but it's showing you that there's a complexity there that we don't normally think of in our day-to-day discourse. That there's a multi-layer to the onion, that's happening there. And I think that's happening on many levels, even ones we don't consciously understand. So,
it's reaching that flow state, and if you've done enough practice, then it's not only that you can reach that state and connect to something. I don't know if I should say greater, but connect to something like an antenna would connect to something, or you open up some channel. And if you've practiced it enough and it's subconscious, then you can really enter that, like you said, like you're playing that or programming that C# or just even, on a breakaway in hockey and not thinking about what you're doing and you just automatically do it because you've done it so many times and if you're in that flow state, it just happens automatically. So I think it's a combination of being present and practicing enough, putting the effort in and being present in a way for that type of thing.
Well, for all of it. Like, I mean, that's what I say about when people say that the secret doesn't work or the law of attraction doesn't work, and it's the same thing. Well, you can't just fucking sit on your couch and wish you were rich. You gotta practice, and you gotta put the work in, and you have to do the action, and you gotta do something other than go home and watch television all night and hope things change.
Yeah. How's your worldview shifted since this has been 10 years since you sort of started this after that intuitive prompted you to create a movie? I mean, how have you shifted over the last few years, the last 10 years?
Well, I think I went through a lot of stages of development. And I think my first stage was believing there was a conspiracy to uncover. And that was important, to go through that. And I kind of came out the other side feeling sick, having plumbed a lot of conspiracies in the world and read all about it. And then I realized that the patterns go beyond conspiracy. They go into the cosmos. And we talked about some of these things already today. Such that the conspiracy, if there is a conspiracy, it's deeper. It's beyond. And then it makes me question about if there is a conspiracy, what level is that at, right? And it's made me wonder about humans. Maybe we're more like mound building termites, where the individual termite brain, it just isn't big enough to hold the architectural plans for the termite mound, which includes air conditioning and farming and structural supports and all this amazing complexity these creatures make. There isn't like one termite who knows all that, but somehow collectively as a species, they coordinate all their efforts to maintain this beautiful structure. So I wonder if some of these patterns happen in our built environment because as a species there's like a species mind that's actually making these things happen, but we as individual designers and engineers and architects aren't even aware of what we're doing.
That makes a lot of sense, because I would tell you, those guys, they had just founded America. Things are looking great. Things are looking up. And, nowadays it's just about making fucking money and, fuck you, every man for himself. It would make sense that our cities are starting to get a little out of control and a little sprawly and a little ugly. And, but at the same time, you see some beautiful buildings coming out today, but, it's kind of what they represent that isn't the same as I picture the buildings like the Great Pyramid and things like that representing in their day.
I think it's
mind you, the Aztecs were just fucking cutting out people's hearts, so who knows?
I think it's more about like what we talk about on the show with deeper synchronicities. When people come to us with these patterns and dates and times and numbers and kind of along the similar vein as what you're doing too, Scott. And we always ask the question of whether it's intentional or whether it's this deeper cosmic conspiracy or cosmic synchronicity. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is it's a bit of patterns as a species. Like it's like the way inventors invent the same thing in different areas of the world at the same time, or maybe some of these things get created in different parts of the world. We're connected.
Yeah, I like that. That's like Newton and Leibniz both invented calculus in the same time. And why is that? It's like there's a species mind who wanted calculus to come out, and it could have come out of one of 3 or 4 different people.
Yeah.
And whoever it was, it didn't matter, but it came out because now is the time for it.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes you wonder what you could do with, when you, if you could get your, whoever, fill in the blank with whether it's Wim Hof or Lynn McTaggart or Graham Hancock or Nassim Haramein, or, get like 10 or 12 of these like next level thinkers and cram them all in like a room together and just like, I wonder, if is there something to that? Is there something to getting the right humans in the right place? That, I mean, obviously there's that when you go home to your kids, or when you see your wife or your girlfriend or whatever after not seeing them for a long time, there's a feeling, and it's like that thing that the relationship isn't me and it isn't you. The relationship lives in that space between you. So, is there something there? Is there something?
That's a really good point you have with that, because that could be like a mind at another level, that like the mind that exists between you and your partner, or you two guys in the room. You guys are partners in a sense, and so you have another entity that exists which represents your friendship. Right?
Yeah. That's what I'm really going into relationship stuff right now, and it's like that it's like, and it's, you can get it in groups as well, but it's like you can start really breaking your life down into relationships, one-on-one relationships with other people, and you can kind of break them into hierarchies or whatever, and you start looking at those relationships, and they're neither of you. They're something different in that space between you. So can you times that by 3 or 4 or 5 33. And get, or 33, and create, what are you creating then? Or do those people need to physically be there?
You're getting at the deeper levels of reality there. This multidimensional experience that we have on everyday level. Like when you have a relationship with someone, you think in terms of we. And that's coming from that entity, right? It's not, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. No, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there any other stages after, starting out conspiracy, then patterns as a species, the species mind kind of thing? Was there another stage after that?
Yeah, the deeper levels are then beyond the species mind, realizing that I am not my mind.
Yeah.
And, that's a really profound thing that happened to me. It turns out about, I don't know, when I was 42. So I'm 48 now. And I realized that I'm not my mind after all this time. And that was a really profound realization. It was akin to realizing I'm not my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I wasn't my body when I was a little kid because I was born without both of my legs and my right hand. And so I was, in a way, fortunate to see through that illusion right away. Most people don't see through that one until they're dying.
Mm-hmm.
But because I had that fortuitous experience of seeing through the illusion of my body, I assumed that I was my mind. And it took me so long to realize that I'm not my mind. I'm aware. I'm just consciousness. And the thoughts in my mind come and go. And it doesn't matter really what's running through the mind. It's just happening. But I'm the one that's aware of that.
Yeah.
Right? And so my identity shifted from identifying with what was happening in my mind. And I used to have like a lot of thoughts that would plague me that I couldn't stop from running,
Mm-hmm.
Now my mind is very quiet and it's active when I need it to be, when I'm studying something, and I enjoy that experience.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm not plagued by runaway thoughts anymore. And I feel like that was a big realization that came from all my work with Secrets in Plain Sight and so on, was to come to that realization that I am not my mind, that I'm actually consciousness. I am actually the same consciousness that you enjoy. But you have a different mind. You have a different contents of your history and of your upbringing and all the things you've ever thought.
Yeah.
And your body is different. And all those differences make you feel like you're a totally different person. But there's actually only one consciousness that's floating all the boats.
Did you catch that through meditation, or what was the actual, because I remember that moment as well when it was probably, for me, it was about 10 years ago, 10 or 11, almost 11 years ago now, when I was doing mindfulness meditations and I separated my thoughts from my awareness. And it was like, wow, that was the most powerful type of meditation for me, was like, now I can actually rest in that space between thoughts, or the more I realized that the gap would increase between the thoughts, and that would start to quiet my mind as well. So I remember that moment for myself.
Well, I was lucky. I had just a friend I met on Cortez Island where I used to live, who was a longtime meditator. In fact, he used to run this whole retreat center where people would do silent meditation for months on end. And he just took it upon himself to educate me in all this stuff and to ask me questions and take me through it. Yeah. And so he kind of blew my mind away in a sense. Yeah. And I realized that I'm not my mind, that in a way I'm a fictional character, but it's very real. I'm not denying the importance of reality. I'm just saying that I see through it. It's a kind of fiction.
I mean, that's exactly how I feel when I take a whack antigens. It's amazing and I haven't done some DMT yet. I'm gonna real soon. But like where you're talking about being able to separate your thoughts, I mean, that's what I'm excited about, is like I've heard all the people I've talked to about, that's one of the experiences. You start to be able to see your thoughts take these geometric shapes and disconnect them from your awareness. I mean, I'm not there yet, except when I eat a bunch of mushrooms. I mean, that's when I can start to notice the whole facade, the whole facade of everything. But the one thing that always shines through is love, and that I'd imagine that feels the same for everybody.
That's right. Yeah, it's the transcendental feeling of goodness and love is what underlies all of this diversity and complexity that we call the universe. It's who you really are, actually.
Yeah. Do you have a daily practice at all, or any kind of regular kind of way to sustain that?
I don't practice. What I practice at is just continuing to develop my mind, and because in my business I need to teach people things.
Yeah.
I always need to be learning and keeping up with the changing technology, but I don't have a spiritual practice. I feel like if you're trying to practice, you're kind of missing the point, because you'll never find it if you're always seeking.
Yeah.
There is no practice needed once you see who you are. It's already over with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, but that's not, I don't want to diminish people's enjoyment of their activities, which they call their practice. Yeah. And that's totally fine and good.
Yeah.
Like if you have some activity that you enjoy doing, and it makes you feel calmer or whatever it does, then more power to you. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Or the seekers out there.
Yeah, I feel like I did spend years seeking early on, like looking into everything and frantically researching everything. And now I feel like I've found it. And so I don't feel the impetus very often to go out and look for more stuff, because I feel like I've covered it. And if I found more examples, it wouldn't really add that much to what I've already found. It might be interesting, but it's not a burning urge that I once had of like passionately wanting to know more and to understand everything.
Yeah.
I feel like I've done that personally, and I don't need to do more of that. That's why I kind of shut down my research with Secrets in Plain Sight. I feel like I've really covered it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. What a great chat. What do you think is can we get into your sacred geometry stuff a little bit? I mean,
sure,
we got a comment in the chat here that says this is some life-changing conversation, and why have I never been thought of this in school? Thank goodness for Grimerica and Scott Onstott, of course.
Well, sacred geometry is really just geometry, but experienced for the beauty of it. And so it's different than the geometry that you probably learned in school, which you might have bad memories of, maybe.
Most likely. But it's just exploring simple geometry, like learning how to draw a 7-pointed star or something. And just that process is a beautiful thing, actually, if you just give yourself space for it to do that, because you're interacting with the kind of foundation of reality, because that's how everything is built, is on geometry. So when you interact with pure geometry like that, it's unlike anything I've found that can just take you right to that transcendent state and get you in that flow state, right? And more than anything I've found, there are other ways to do that, of course, but this is a beautiful one that doesn't require ingesting any chemicals, and it's something everybody can do, and it doesn't have very much baggage with it. What we just need to do is break through the blocks people might have about being afraid to draw because of what they were traumatized with in school. But once you see how it's easy to do, you can get there and do it, and then you naturally will experience this sacredness emerge out of this geometry.
I mean,
and it's a really beautiful thing. Yeah.
That drawing could be like a metaphor for like learning in school. I really feel like, look at the percentage of guys like yourself or Graham and I, or the people, all of our listeners I would consider on the same sort of journey, but we're a small percentage of the people that want to continue learning and chasing knowledge, and are always kind of chomping at the bit to increase our understanding of different things, whatever that may be, physical, relational, personal, metaphysical, whatever it is. There's still, it seems like it's got to be 90+% of the population are just sort of trudging along or sort of just existing, I guess. I wonder and if that's, it almost seems like school is doing that, by design. It's like hammering that learning's supposed to be fun. And if you don't have to sit there and learn French all day, I mean, no offense to the French, there's way more cool stuff to learn. And if we could teach kids that, the world could
it's
be a better place.
Learning should be its own reward, because when you really get into it, it's a self-fulfilling pleasure that you just love to know more, right? But to get someone to that point where they can just uptake new knowledge independently is very challenging, because the system is geared against that. In fact, it's designed to kind of deaden you, I think.
Yeah, it does seem to be doing that by design in a bunch of different ways. The more you look at it, and not only that, it seems to be, you look at a lot of those things, and that's where I tend to, like, maybe I can still get caught up in that conspiracy side of things, where it's like, no one, and I mean, on a simple example, it's like in the West, who teaches you that starting your own business is even really an option? It's find a good job, that's not even really on the fucking table. And even above and beyond that, you look at what just the power of thought, to the power of mindset and thinking and intention and all of those sort of things, that you go back and look at some of these books that were written in the 30s, and it's all over the place. And it's like it's slowly being taken out of the culture for some reason. Is it because you can go to the Rockefellers or whatever the fuck, but it does seem like
the system needs to have people graduate from high school or university knowing almost nothing, because then they can enter the system at the bottom floor, and that values all the people above them.
Yeah.
So the system is designed to output a person who knows nothing at the ground level. But what if it outputs someone who is way smarter than the people that are getting on this whole ladder? Then the whole system would be in turmoil, because now you have these geniuses coming out who should be in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Or people without PhDs that are telling us our history, that seem to be, getting it right more often than the people with the PhDs that'll argue till they're blue in the face. And, it's just, I don't know. So the education system is a mess. And it's not even just the education system. It's like academia is a mess in its current state. I mean, science is to the highest bidder, and
Well, you can bribe your way into these colleges to get brainwashed if you want.
there we go. We'll start a Kickstarter.
$100,000 will get
We're
you.
gonna get Grant. We'll get Darren into college so he can infiltrate the system. I'm going to Harvard, baby.
So what else about your course then? So you get these guys drawing. Now, is this in person or is this online?
This is online. Well, there are different things. I do a thing in person in Ireland every year.
Oh, wow.
We're going to be doing it this fall in Ireland, just outside of Dublin.
Oh.
And it's a beautiful place in the countryside. We go, and it's a weekend workshop there. So you can learn more about that at sacredgeometry.academy. It's my website.
Okay.
And I don't have a sign-up thing there yet, but my partner over there has just told me it's going to be coming in the next week or two. We're going to get dates, and then it'll be up on the site, and you can sign up.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's
We got a
only
bunch
for
of listeners
33
there.
people, so there's only so much space, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we got a whole UK posse that's not too far from. We got a bunch of listeners in Ireland too, but we have a weird sort of bunch of listeners in the UK, so we might be able to get some Grimericans down there. I hope we can.
That would be cool. In past years, we've had people from Texas come, and people from Finland and Netherlands and UK, and a lot of people from Ireland. So it's cool how it draws just people from all over who want to give themselves the luxury of a whole weekend to explore sacred geometry. It's really, you come out transformed and uplifted, and everyone was just so happy at the end of each workshop.
Oh, that's
It's
great.
a great thing.
That's great.
Yeah. And so then I also have an online course that you can check out at my website, scott.training. And that's the sacred geometry course I offer there. And that has you watch the videos yourself, you do the exercises yourself, and then there's webinars where I come on and explain things, and you can ask questions and stuff like that. So there's some interaction.
Awesome.
Are you on any social media or anything like that?
I got rid of Facebook. I feel good about that. I'm still on LinkedIn, but that's just for professional kind of reasons. But I don't know if it's generational, but I just don't feel the need to tell everybody what I had for dinner or what things look like. I just don't feel the need to take selfies of myself when I go places and whatnot and share that with everybody. So I'm kind of getting to be a curmudgeon, I guess, about social media. I don't like it.
That's like Graham. He came in a curmudgeon.
I'm 40. I'm 49, so it must be generational. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel the same. I'm 48, so we're the same basically.
I'm smart enough to know better. But I mean, I'm trying to market a podcast here,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
tough. I don't have a
There's
personal
people
account
made for that for business reasons, right?
Yeah.
So,
We deleted a personal account. I deleted my personal account. You never had one, which just turned a whole fucking thing because then I couldn't make an ad when I wanted to make an ad for the event. I couldn't make an ad, and it was a whole thing. But what are you gonna do? Well, anything else we should get?
No,
to?
I think this is a great chat. Yeah.
This is gonna go down as an all-time favorite episode. I guarantee it. But we've already got people saying that in the chats.
it's really a nice talk we've had.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, we covered all gamuts here. And you're just over there. I mean, hey, maybe we can bump into each other here down the road. Maybe Graham's always out that way going to check out Cloudhead games and stuff like that. And I think you're a bit of a gamer, so maybe we can do something together out there one day.
That'd be great. Yeah, just give me a shout if you're in my neck of the woods, and we'll get together. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, same with you. If you're ever in Calgary, you can come to studio for sure.
Okay, cool.
All right.
I've only been to Calgary like on a layover, going somewhere else. But maybe if
you have a long layover, we'll meet you at the airport.
I can put a little more time in Calgary.
Yeah, right on.
If you have a long layover, we'll come visit you, and we'll just do it on the digital recorder, or we'll just have lunch or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
All right.
Yeah,
right on, Scott.
It's been a
have
blast.
a good night. Come back anytime.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Take care. And that was our chat with Scott Onstott. I think I'm going to have to start saying that from now on.
What's that? Yeah, because I have to go
over and turn it off.
It wouldn't be so bad if I had a mouse. I just can't get the fucking mouse to work.
You have a mouth.
I have a mouth on me. That's for sure. I could, send cash.
I hope Scott was okay with the swear words. You're popping some F-bombs today. That's all right.
I was also dropping some knowledge bombs. Yeah,
that was good. That was a blast. I mean, if people haven't seen this, honestly, like I watched the whole 4 hours of it. It was incredible.
Oh yeah, you could
3 hours 45 minutes, I think.
Yeah,
and there's all kinds of synchronicities that you would just, and it's not like he's picking this number and matching this number and trying to make a connection. These are real connections.
And there's a part 2, which I'm gonna have to track down now on Gaia.
Yeah, I kind of didn't really come across part 2. I kind of saw that there was one out there, but I really just wanted to get the meat of the big one, like the whole big one, watched before the show for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great video. Everyone should go check that out. Check out his sacred geometry stuff. And check out Grimerica.ca/support, guys, so we can keep having these sort of great, fancy chats.
Uninterrupted?
Uninterrupted, no corporate bullshit.
No sponsors, no ads.
No, except you guys. You guys are sponsors. So go to Grimerica.ca/support.
The producers.
And sponsor the show.
I think there's a super chat, too.
We got a super chat from Suzanne.
Sweet. Thanks, Suzanne.
Suzanne gave us $25
Sweet.
for this episode. So we got paid $25 for this episode. Thank you, Suzanne. Of course, that's not true. We do have a bunch of supporters that do support at Grimerica.ca/support. Just enough to cover all expenses. And we're looking to do some growing. We've got some ideas of some things we'd like to do down the road. To be perfectly honest, we've just got a list of interviewees that's so long we could be doing 2 or 3 shows a week.
Yeah.
But, we got to get there, and we can't get there without a bunch more support. So head over to Grimerica.ca/support. All the options are in one place now, on one page, Stripe, Patreon, all of it, one spot. And do it.
Leave a voicemail, 403-702-6083.
Or a text.
Or Graham, you can send Graham an email to graham@grimerica.com.
Yeah. And check out everything in the newsletter, grimerica.ca/news. And
Chats.
check out the chats, grimerica.ca/chats.
Chats are great. It's like a perpetual chat room in Discord.
By the time this comes out, our chat was our getaway with Randall might be sold out, but it still was worth heading over. We just did. We actually ended up with a few more camp spots.
Yeah.
So head over to badcomet.com. All the details are there. It's a basically chance to do a 3-day getaway.
Also,
with Randall Carlson. Do a bunch of cool stuff there. Do some setting with Graham.
CE5.
Some live podcasting. Some presentations. So it's gonna be great. You're not gonna want to miss it. You might have already missed it. I hope not. Hope I didn't get your hopes up for nothing. Badcomet.com. Other than that, I think that's about it. You got anything else?
Yep.
All right.
We don't even talk about the black budget, but we do. For the supporters, we do have a separate feed of awesome content with some friends of ours and guests, and just me and Darren sometimes reading shit. And that's a good way. You get something besides just supporting us. You get that value as well.
That's right. Fucking value.
Any
Bursting out of the
support.
seams.
I don't know if we need to say that, but any support, one-time donation or monthly. Obviously, we prefer the monthly recurring donation, and then you get access to that.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. I said that 333 fucking times. 334.
More than that, 45 probably with all the.
Jeez. Should I switch it up?
Nope. No, don't switch up what's working.
Okay, guys, we'll be back in 30. I think we're getting interviewed on the next one. But we'll stream it anyway. So we'll be back 30 minutes. Oh.